Hey. I got a joke for you. A zombie walked into a bar. Ha! Got him!
Surprise, motherfucker!
Oh, shit! What the fuck is up, guys? My name is Nick, and welcome back to another episode of Different Set, where every episode I've got a different set. Now, tomorrow is October, I think. February. Yes, I'm right. So to kick off the month of scary stuff, I thought that we would review the scariest game of this year, Resident Evil 2. Now, I can't do this video without spoiling literally everything. So if you haven't played it and you don't want to be spoiled like that milk in your fridge, then let me give you some pointers. And also, you should go throw that milk away, because it's gross and you probably shouldn't drink that. Number 2, play through the game as Claire first, because her campaign is much more fun than Leon's is. Number 1, play through assisted mode, because normal is like hard mode. Number 3, put number 1 before number 2, because that's how numbers work. And number D, make sure you board up all the windows in the operations room hallway before you go meet Leon at the gate outside. You'll thank me later. Now, class, I'd like all of the milks to go way down in the hall so that they don't get spoiled, and let's begin. Resident Evil 2 has some problems, and I can tell you that you're not gonna like what I have to say if you're a fan of the game. Hear me out. It's not a bad game, and I don't want you to get the idea that I think you're dumb for liking it. You can like whatever you want, and I won't judge you for it. Besides, I have plenty of other reasons to think you're dumb. But I didn't receive the game as well as most, and goddammit, I need to get it off my chest. But before you tell me in the comments that I barely even played the game because I didn't do this or I didn't do that, let me tell you right up front, I did just about everything. I even got the platinum trophy, so I'd like to think I know what I'm talking about. So let's start out with the stuff I mentioned in the opening of this video. The way I see it, assisted mode is like normal, standard is like hard, and hardcore is also like hard but not fun. Hardcore is marginally harder than standard when it comes to balance, and you're given more than enough ink ribbons to get through the game. But it's the S+ ranks that make it bullshit. Not because of the timer, but because of the 3 save limit. I got the S+ ranks to get the infinite ammo weapons, and it just wasn't worth it. Dying means you can lose like an hour of progress if you're not careful. Fucking, what is this, Dark Souls? And it turns out, I was right, and all my worries about the game came to fruition. Don't you just love it when that happens? It seems to me like Resident Evil B Team didn't understand what made Resident Evil 7 so balanced, and they just thought it must be that the game is bullshit hard and that's what people want. So that's what they did. If I encounter a zombie in a Resident Evil game, I should have a couple of options. I can fight the zombie but use up precious resources in the process. I can run past the zombie but risk getting hit or having to deal with him later on. Or I can knife the shit out of him and move on with my day. None of these options work in Resident Evil 2. Zombies have way too much health, so shooting them is a major waste of ammo and patience. Running past them doesn't work because they suction to you and can double lunge just to make sure they're meeting their fucking bullshit quota. And the knife is like the one you get when your dad teaches you how to whittle. It breaks way too quickly, and you can't stab shit with it. This leads me to feeling like the game is being a big asshole no-funster, instead of making me feel like the odds may be against me, but if I persevere, I can come out alive, which is how good survival horror is supposed to feel. Now, I am of the personal opinion that, hey y'all, Nick here, you're fucking crazy. Because Resident Evil has always been more about the combat than puzzles or exploration or anything else. Because the combat is where all of the survival horror parts come from. And if the combat has problems, no amount of atmosphere or cringy voice acting can fix that. Which it has one of those things.
Indestructible monsters.
That explains the horrible things I've seen.
Can't say I didn't warn you.
You said the virus turned people into monsters, not reptiles.
Fair point.
But the game isn't really scary. Its atmosphere is alright, but it's also filled with a bunch of scripted jump scares.
this thing will die.
And as all the pretentious assholes on the internet like to point out, jump scares aren't scary. But let's move on to why I think Claire's campaign is better than Leon's. This largely comes down to the underground section, because the rest of the game is pretty much the same. Yes, I'll get to that in a second. Getting to the basement in Claire's campaign means you get to avoid this fucking hallway, and that hallway can burn in hallway hell.
What the hell?
I'll take the elevator, thank you. But the actual basement part of Leon's campaign is where it gets really fucking annoying. Dogs. A word I don't really like hearing in any Resident Evil. And the basement of the police station is fucking covered in them. It's like they were having a dog show down here when the outbreak occurred. Where were you when the outbreak occurred? Mr. Cutie Patootie was about to win the gold medal at the obedience show. Instead, he won the agility show. And also ripped some guy's face off. Now, I know that they replaced all the dogs with lickers in Claire's campaign, but the lickers are so much easier to deal with. Not only do they die in one hit with their grenade launcher, but you can also sneak past them. You can't do that with dogs. They just fuck you. You can't run past them without luck, and they move around so much that you end up wasting too much ammo on them from all that missing you're going to be doing. And there are 7 dogs in the basement in Leon's campaign. 10 or 11 if you don't kill the ones in the cages. I know you have to fight them in the city on your way to the orphanage in Claire's campaign. The only one that's a problem is the one that fucking swipes you when you leave the bus. Which is bullshit, but more tolerable than this. Of course, I love Ada as much as the next member of the I Love Ada fan club, but Sherry's part is just so much better. It's more interesting, it's more fun, and it reminds me of Resident Evil 7 because it reuses so many assets from that game. So I prefer Sherry's part over Ada's. I'm sorry, members of the I Love Ada fan club, please don't kick me out. Then there's the weapon choice. The weapons that Claire gets are better than Leon's as well. Leon gets the shotgun, which if you know what you're doing can be very effective. But let's be honest, most people don't know how to use it well enough. Then he gets the Magnum, which is effective on bosses like it's supposed to be, but not as effective as Claire's weapon. And also there's no Magnum parts anymore. 0 out of 10. Too much not Magnum. The flamethrower is fucking useless against everything except the IVs. And the Matilda is just alright. It's great as like a landmark item, you know, a gun that everybody knows, like the Samurai Edge or the Infinite Rocket Launcher, but as an actual gun, it's nothing special. Compare that to Claire, where the grenade launcher can kill lickers in one hit, can burn IVs, do massive damage to zombies, and can use acid rounds, which makes G3 Birkin a fucking joke. Not to mention the SMG that makes quick work of bosses, and the spark shot, which, oh my god, is one of the strongest weapons in the game. It's the only weapon that's really effective against adult Gs, and it melts G4 Birkin. Welcome to Cheat, where in this episode, we cover Resident Evil 2, only on G4. Birkin. And if all that wasn't good enough, her starting pistol may be worse than Leon's in the beginning, but the speed loader improves its weakest stat. And the JB that you get in the parking garage blows the Matilda out of the fucking water. In case you didn't know, damage in Resident Evil 2 works based on how zoomed in your reticle is. The more zoomed in it is, the more damage you do. The laser sight makes it always do max damage because it's always fully zoomed in. And the extended clip makes running out of ammo a non-issue. Plus, the pistol upgrade for the revolver turns it into a fucking Magnum. Still not as good as a Magnum, but you can't look a GIF Magnum in the mouth. What is a Magnum? So in summary, Claire's campaign is relatively easier, better designed, and more fun than Leon's. But does that even mean anything when according to this bitch, the campaigns are so similar? Yes, and no, and also yes. And yes, as well as yes, and no. Don't be fooled. Resident Evil 2 is one game that you're supposed to play through 4 times. If anyone says anything different, they're a dirty fucking liar. The difference between Leon and Claire's main story scenario is outlined in the previous section of this video. The weapon choice changes, the basement section mildly changes, the final boss changes, and the only part with any real difference is when you leave the police station. In Leon's campaign, you do some shit with the jail cells, go through the gun store, fight the alligator, and play as Ada. I'm still sorry. Please don't revoke my membership. And in Claire's campaign, you play as Sherry, run from the tyrant, and go through the orphanage. The rest of the game is either identical for each character or very slightly changed, but not in any meaningful way. And the same goes for the second story, or Scenario B, for each character. It's slightly altered from Scenario A. The beginning is different, some puzzles are different, and each character gets a new handgun. Some of the item locations change, but honestly, most of them stay the same. I mean, fucking look at this. This gear is in the same spot for all 4 scenarios. And the same things that differentiate Leon and Claire's Scenario A are the things that differentiate their Scenario Bs. It's like they made one campaign and changed 15% of it and copy and pasted the rest for the other 3 campaigns. Oh shit. This is a remake!
God damn.
There already was a Resident Evil 2, and they're just sticking to the source material, guys. Well, shit. Then I suppose that makes me look like a stupid fucking idiot. No problems here. Or are there? Yes, we still have problems. I didn't want to compare to the original too much, because that's not what this remake is. They obviously weren't trying to recreate the original game one-to-one, but when they gave themselves this much creative freedom to change stuff, and they didn't change the most obvious shit that should have been changed, it's hard not to look at the source material and think, why? Who? How? Magnum? So in preparation for this video, I played through the original Resident Evil 2 again to see if it was as good as I remember and see how it stacks up against the remake. And the results are in, and the better game is the original. Yeah, the original's better.
Don't shoot!
Get down!
First of all, the balance is way better in the original. It feels more like actual survival horror because all of your options are available. Use ammo, run, knife, as previously outlined in this video. It's all here and it all works, but honestly it's the campaign differences that really shine. There are loads of differences between Leon and Claire's campaign, sure, but the Scenario A and B differences are out of this fucking world for 1998. There's the armory, where there's the SMG and the item pouch, and the Scenario A character can take either one, or both. And whatever they leave gets left for the Scenario B character. The wire, which closes the break room hallway or the operations room hallway, which they replaced with the boards in the remake, by the way. The wire will stop working in Scenario B if you use it on Scenario A, or you can leave it and the Scenario B character can use it. Which means you have 4 choices on where you want to use the wire, which hallway and which scenario. The alligator boss fight, which was turned into fucking Crash Bandicoot in the remake, is not only more interesting in the original, but you can skip it in Scenario A and leave it for Scenario B if you want. Or just take it out in Scenario A so you don't have to deal with it in Scenario B, which is what most people do. They even made it so that you run into the other character for story parts and can hang out with them until you leave the room, just to give you that sense that they're actually going through the game at the same time.
Looks like we're not gonna find your brother here after all.
In the remake, they just replace this with letters that you find lying around in Scenario B, but that doesn't make me feel like the character is actually going through the same area that I am. See, they did leave some stuff unchanged from the original to the remake, but they also changed so much about the game that it's unacceptable that they didn't improve this shit. Now, like, the original doesn't have any groundbreaking changes between the 4 campaigns either. It has more than the remake, but it's not fucking mind-blowing. But when given the chance to remake it, they not only kept the minimal changes, but took out the choice-based changes in the Scenario B campaigns. Well, why though? It just makes the game worse. Like, picture this. What if in the remake, you loaded your completed file from Scenario A when going into Scenario B, just like you do in the original? But in Scenario B, all the windows that got boarded up the first time were still boarded up. And the gun in the Stars Armory could either be taken the first time or left for the Scenario B character. I mean, you could theoretically do this shit for any item and enemy at all. Make it so every item I took and enemy I killed stayed the same between scenarios. Or they could have ditched the scenario system entirely and fully realized the point of the scenario system in the first place. We're meant to believe that the characters are going through everything at the same time, right? So why not make one campaign where Leon and Claire are stuck in different parts of the police station and sewers and labs, but have to do things in their part to help the other person out?
That worked. Okay, better move it.
Or you could switch between them at specific points in the story.
Claire. It's so nice to see you. Claire, you need to go. Now.
Okay, let's get through this. Both of us.
Marvin, I've got a situation here.
Or fuck, like Resident Evil 0, you could switch between them at any time. I'm not a fucking game developer, but it just baffles me that they didn't do anything like this. They didn't even keep it the same, they just made it worse in the remake. But, you know, everyone talks about the graphics and how pretty they are, but let's be honest, Devil May Cry 5 looks way better. Plus, this weird fucking screen space reflection dithering bullshit is constantly present on the PS4 version, and it made the game look like shit sometimes, and I played it on PS4 Pro. But, you know, I don't care about the graphics. I care about what they did to improve the original. And I just don't think they really did improve on the original. Some things are better, yeah, but the overall game is worse in my opinion, and really the best part is the Tyrant improvements. I refuse to call him Mr. X. I think people have made it out to seem like he's in way more of the game than he actually is. He's only in like a third of it, and he isn't very hard to avoid, except for right here. You back the fuck up, buddy, alright? You get out of my personal space.
But what about the other modes? Well, they're cool, I guess. They're pretty repetitive.
Going through the fourth survivor is fun. Going through the tofu survivor is alright. And then going through the same thing 4 more times but with different loadouts is fucking boring. Some of them are hard, some of them are easy, none of them are interesting. I would have been significantly more happy with just 4th and Tofu Survivor, and then make a remake of the battle mode from the DualShock version of the original. Or maybe even Mercenaries, since it's like only the best fucking thing Resident Evil has ever included. But just like the main game, they made 1 extra mode and repeated it 5 more times. I mean, they also could have included something that we've never seen before. Like, there's a cutscene where Claire talks about Chris. And that got me thinking, what if they made Chris a playable character?
Like when Dead Rising 2 came out, everybody wondered, what would it have been like to play as Frank West instead of Chuck? So they made Dead Rising 2 Off the Record, where you play as Frank West instead of Chuck. What if when you beat Resident Evil 2 Remake, you could play as Chris and go through an alternate version of the campaign as him? Maybe he could have more health, or have the ability to do melee attacks to stun zombies, or maybe he could punch a fucking boulder! But all the items are rearranged, and there are harder enemies placed more frequently, like Ivies or Adult G's in the police station, and multiple tyrants running around that even follow you through the sewers and the labs. It's just so frustrating because they only had 1 shot to remake this game, and they missed out on so many opportunities to make it something really special. And when they had a second chance for the DLC, they fucked that up too.
I was at least hoping to get some story context for some of these characters, like the mayor's daughter or Robert Kendo, the gun shop owner. But no, they're all just a bunch of what-if scenarios that are not canon and have sloppily thrown together gameplay that you play through once and you won't ever touch again. The only one that was even remotely interesting was the fucking sheriff, because it's the closest thing the game has to Mercenaries.
By now you probably get the point. Resident Evil 2 is a classic for good reason. And the remake is nothing. It's not a faithful recreation of the game that we all know and love. It's not a reimagining of the original that fixes all of the problems and improves on it. It's definitely not Magnum. And it's not the return of survival horror that everyone seems to think it is. We already got that. It's called Resident Evil 7. And let me tell you, that game is Magnum. So in closing, Resident Evil 2, Magnum. Resident Evil 2 Remake, not Magnum. Resident Evil 7, Magnum, Magnum, Magnum. And also, Mugnum. Thanks for Mugnum. I hope you have a great Mugnum, and tune in next time for another episode of Mugnum. Thanks for watching, guys. I worked really hard on this video, and I hope you enjoy it. Leave a like if you did, subscribe if you're new, and you know what? Who knows if I have any fucking idea what I'm talking about. So leave a comment down below, and I pass the question on to you. Will you take the Mugnum parts? And make sure you keep it right here on the Disney Channel, because tomorrow is the start of... Zane? Hello?
Hey, are we gonna do the Halloween party thing?
Yeah, we'll do the Halloween party, okay? I'll finish right now.